Hello everyone, and welcome to my guide for Eden's Verse Fulmination Savage, also known as E5S. Now there are a few things you'll want to establish before this fight begins, the first of which will be your positions for Storm Cloud Summons. For those positions you will want your ranged party members at far inner cardinal positions while your melee party members are at near inner cardinal positions. There are a number of ways you can spread out for that mechanic, but you will need 4 people close to the boss while another 4 are further away from him. It chooses targets based on proximity to the boss, so keep that in mind. The next thing you will need to establish is a line of 7 players, with one end of that line being designated as the north end and the other as the south end. You can either use true north positioning or you can use north relative to where the boss is at the time, and I will get into that later as well. The last thing you'll want to establish is positions for chain lightning. There are a couple different ways this can be handled. You will either need to establish 2 groups of 3 to pass the chain lightning amongst each other, or you will need to establish clock positions around the boss to pass the chain lightning in a circle. I will get into the benefits and drawbacks of each of those methods later. We are using the 2 groups of 3, the quote-unquote triangle strategy here, and we are doing so with set positions, which I do want to talk about a little before we start the fight so that I can kind of cover the markers we have set here while you can still see them from a optimal angle, as later in the fight the tank point of view does not offer a very great viewpoint for explaining that. Now the markers we have set here, A, B, and C, and D are for your storm cloud positions, whereas 1, 2, 3, and 4 are static positions for chain lightning. With the triangle method that we're using, those numbered positions being static means that your melee damage dealers in 1 and 3 and your healers in 2 and 4 do not need to move at all the entire time chain lightning is happening. Instead, your preferably range damage dealers on C and D are doing all the movement. And the way that works, and again I'll get back into this later in the fight, but as soon as chain lightning goes on your healer, it will then pass to your range damage dealer on the C or mirrored on the D. They simply move forward to the corner directly in front of them, and then they will now be closer to the melee damage dealer because this is a rectangle and this side is shorter. The chain lightning passes to the melee, they move directly back to their C or D position, and because again this is a triangle and the hypotenuse is longer than any side, the chain lightning will automatically pass from that melee damage dealer to the healer, and without moving at all, it will pass back to the range damage dealer once the time is appropriate. And then you simply move back up to the melee, it passes, and you move back to your marker. It is really that simple. I will again get into different ways of doing this mechanic later, but I needed to show you that while we still had a good camera angle on these markers. Now, that being said, let's get into it. The first thing that you're going to see, as has been the case with many of our encounters before, is a raid-wide attack from the boss, and just as it was in normal, this raid-wide attack is called Judgment Bolts. It happens pretty quickly, about 2 GCDs into the fight, so just be ready for it. And then the next thing that's going to happen after that goes out, and heal up from it, is going to be Stratosphere Summons. So just like we did in normal, we're looking for the short spear here, and you're going to see them drop. And again, some of these spears are longer and one is shorter, and you just run to the corner of the short spear in order to not get hit by the AoEs going out from them. So ours is in the southeast, so we all run to that southeast corner. We stack up there, we dodge the AoE, and we're back into the fight. Now as you're running back in, you're going to want to grab one of these orbs here. Just stand on it for a second so that you're not failing to server ticks. Stand on it for a second so that you can grab the debuff that comes from it, which is called Surge Protection. And you see I've just gotten a Surge Protection stack there. It lasts for 50 seconds. Anytime you grab another stack, it will reset the timer on that 50 seconds. It can stack up to 3 times before it becomes dangerous. If you stack it a 4th time, it becomes overcharged and does a fairly heavy damage over time to you. So never get more than 3 stacks, and unless you're the off tank, you should only ever need 1 stack. In this case, we do need 1 for the charged Judgment Bolt that is coming out. You only need it for specific mechanics that happen through the fight. You do not need it up at all times. I will notify you of what mechanics those are. So grab your stack of Surge Protection and get ready for a raid wide that's going to come out. Another thing he just did there is he cast Executor Summons right here. That means he's summoning an ad that the off tank needs to pick up. The way the off tank picks that up is the off tank is going to grab 3 stacks of that Surge Protection. The Executor bird automatically targets the person with the most stacks of Surge Protection. If 2 people have the same amount of stacks, it will go after whoever is closer to it with that same amount. So ideally your off tank grabs 3 stacks just in case someone accidentally picked up a second one and they take the tether from that bird. If this bird gets close to anyone, if it gets within melee range of the person it's tethered to, it will kill that person. So if you're the off tank here kiting the bird, make sure you do not let it get too close to you. There's going to be a lot of running around. Keep uptime where you can. It doesn't matter if it walks through you, if it's not tethered to you, it's only going to kill the person it's tethered to. But if it does kill the off tank at any point, it will just start murking your other players, so make sure you're doing a good job of kiting it if you are the kiter. Next thing he's going to do here is a raid wide. And he just cast Judgment Bolts there. Fury's Bolt, I meant. You can see the cast there. And that's going to empower a number of his attacks throughout the fight. You can see it indicated by these 3 rotating electric orbs around the boss. That's indicating that he currently has Fury's Bolt activated. In this case, it's empowering Judgment Bolts, which means everyone in the party needs a stack of Surge Protection in order to survive it. And it's just raid-wide damage. Immediately after that Judgment Bolts goes out, you're going to want your ranged players to pre-position for their Stormcloud Summons positions. And then we're going to take some tank busters here. You can see a tank buster already going out on my off tank. That's what that arrow is indicating. And then I'm going to take a tank buster from this crippling blow here on the main tank. Now he starts casting Stormcloud Summons. Now again, this is based on proximity. So the 4 furthest players from the boss are marked up with Storm Clouds, and the 4 closest players to the boss are marked up with a Prey marker. You do want to set those Storm Clouds at set positions. If they get too close to each other, they will become an empowered cloud, and they will most likely wipe your raid. So make sure they're at decent intervals. You can either put them at inner cardinals like we have here on those 4 corners, and they are entirely safe there. You would do this for melee uptime, or you can put them at the far corners of the map. Just as long as they're not too close to each other, you should be fine. Just keep in mind that your melee damage dealers and your tanks that get marked with that prey marker will need to take one hit of the storm cloud in order to wipe off their debuff. So that's why we put it so close here, so that our melee don't have to move. Storm Cloud Summons goes out. You see me grab a stack of Surge Protection there, which all your melee with prey markers will have to do in order to survive the hit from the Storm Cloud. And then you can see the debuff here that's about to be wiped off by taking that Storm Cloud hit. Boom. If so this pulsing AoE that goes out from all your melee players, if that hits any other player nearby, it will paralyze them. That's why we've done positioning as we have. And then this Levin Force here that happens directly after the Storm Cloud Summons is a knockback, so make sure you use your knockback prevention. You can stand to the direct side of the boss, either east or west, and survive the knockback, but there's no reason to not use your knockback prevention, so just go for it. And then he's either going to cast Fury's Bolt here, or he's going to go straight into his charge mechanic. If he does cast Fury's Bolt, you will need to pick up a Surge Protection. If not, don't worry about it. So he went straight into Tribunal Summons. You don't need Surge Protection. You would had he cast Fury's Bolt. But another thing that happens because he didn't cast Fury's Bolt is we're stacking right behind this dotted line on the arena here. Had he cast Fury's Bolt, we would have been on the solid line here, just behind it. But he didn't cast it, so we're behind the dotted line, and that is to survive the knockback that's going to come from the Tribunal Summons charge. You want to be standing just behind the line, you don't want to be on it, and you certainly don't want to be over it. You also don't want to be too far back, because you don't want to get knocked off the edge, so right behind the line, just up next to it without stepping on it. Saw me get a little bit more uptime before I got in position myself. I'm checking that I'm in the proper position by checking the profile of my character, and then we get knocked back. Next thing he casts is Crippling Blow, another tank buster on the main tank. Make sure you mitigate appropriately. And then we're going to take a Raid Wide. So as that Raid Wide goes out, we're mitigating appropriately for it. There we go. And then he's going to cast Fury's Bolt again. This one will always precede Thunderstorm. You'll never have a Thunderstorm without Fury's Bolt, so you don't have to worry about different types of it. Just make sure you grab a Surge Protection for Thunderstorm. He's going to pop up these AoEs on the ground. You cannot get hit by a single one of those. Now I know it's fairly common sense to not stand in fire, do not get hit by bad stuff on the ground, but it's particularly relevant here because if you do get hit by any of those lightning bolts, it will wipe off your Surge Protection, and then you won't be able to survive the one that specifically targets you. So make sure you just dodge all of those, keep your Surge Protection up, and survive through the targeted AoE. He's going to do 2 sets of those targeted AoEs. The first set is on a random 4 party members, and the second set will be on the remaining 4 party members. And because there's so many lightning bolts going out based on player positioning, you will want to spread out sufficiently during the thunderstorm in order to not clip your fellow party members. Just kind of spread out to your general storm cloud summons directions, and that should be sufficient. So he pops an ad here with his Executor Summons. Make sure your off-tank has a sufficient amount of Surge Protection to take that ad, and then he does a Crippling Blow on the main tank, so put up your mitigation. Following that, he's going to do Stepped Leader. Now this version of Stepped Leader is not empowered with Fury's Bolt, and when it is not empowered you need to move at the end of the cast and then back in. So that works just like a Twister mechanic from Twintania, if you remember back then. The way it works is it marks every party member's position at the end of the cast, and then it will cast a subsequent lightning bolt on that position a few seconds later. So as soon as the cast ends, you need to move not only away from where you were standing, but away from where all your other party members were standing as well. And then wait for the lightning bolt to go off, and then you can get back in position. Now, I, as the tank, start moving in a little bit early because I don't want the boss to move at all. You need to... boss positioning is really important in this fight. You need to keep him centered as much as humanly possible. Just anything you can do to help that take advantage. The next thing he's going to do is raid wide here. That raid wide goes out immediately after the off tank has just taken another tank buster from the ad. If you can help give the off tank a little more mitigation, go for it, but also make sure you mitigate this raid wide damage. One thing of note from Judgment Bolts here, you'll notice it's what's spawning all the orbs on the ground. When those orbs spawn, make sure that you're leaving this one directly north of the boss for the main tank, again, because you don't want that main tank running around too much, so that the boss's position stays the same. We will all need to pick up these surge protections. Make sure you get a stack, as Furies 14 will require it, which is what he's casting right now. Now with Furies 14, he's going to spawn 14 spears, 7 on either side of the map, which is why we established our 7 positions ahead of time. He's also casting Tribunal Summons on one side of the map. It happens to be the west side here. So that side is unsafe. We need to get away from the west side. So we're all stacking in front of our spears on the east side. Just like he did for the Tribunal Summons before, you're going to want to stack... you're going to want to position directly behind this solid line. Do not step on the line, do not step over the line, do not be too far back, just directly behind it and in front of your spear. The goal here is to get knocked back into the spear so that it breaks, so that it can't do the raid wide, the AoE damage that it is meant to do. So we're all going to get in position for those spears. And then the boss charges to one side of the map. Now, if you are doing relative positions for your spear positions, you would wait until the boss charged to one point of the map before getting in front of your spears, and you would get in front of your numbered spears accordingly. Most groups will do true north positioning, so that you get in front of the same spear no matter what side the boss goes to. This gives you more time to adjust to that, and it also just requires less thinking. The benefit to doing relative north is that you can prioritize your melee damage dealers in the first 1 or 2 spears so that they can keep a little bit more uptime before getting in position themselves. Now as he goes to one side, he will spawn this circle in front of him. Standing in that circle gives you this duty action, which will help mitigate his charge. You will need to put up some form of personal mitigation, particularly heavy mitigation, as this hits pretty hard in order to survive the Centaur's charge itself. This only happens 2 times throughout the entire fight, so it is highly advised that you use your invuln for this Centaur's charge. I take the first one with Hollowed Ground myself, and the second one that happens later in the fight I leave to my warrior partner here. But after you cast whatever mitigation you're going to use, be that invuln or otherwise, make sure you hit that duty action and then do not do anything else. Make sure you're facing the boss before you hit the action, And after you hit the action, do not move, do not rotate, do not use any abilities. Doing any of those things will break the duty action and you will fail the mechanic. But what this does is it dampens the power of his charge so that it doesn't knock people back as far so that we can then survive the mechanic. Had I not used that duty action, we all would have gotten knocked off the edge of the map and we'd be dead. But one more thing I want to point out here is as he's charging across, all of our party members break the spears they were in front of, because again they were standing directly in front of them, and then we can survive the raid wides going out. Now you can see the spears on the other end charging up here. They're going to do raid wide damage. All of that came from the other spears, so you can see how if any of these were up, the AoE going out from them would be so far that we'd almost certainly get hit by it. So that's almost always a wipe if you leave a single spear up. You can't have anyone dead going into Furies 14. If you do have dead people, make sure you get those raises off quickly. You have time to adjust, so please do so. Next thing is going to be another stepped leader. This one is empowered by Fury's Bolt, so instead of being a twister-like mechanic where we move at the end of the cast, we are instead going to have donut AoEs around all of us. The way we handle that here is everyone stacks up behind the boss. Everyone stacks up behind the boss so that those donuts go out around everyone and do not hit any individual party member. You can also YOLO those donut positions if you're feeling brave. Just make sure you're sufficiently spread out from every individual party member so that no one clips anyone. Whatever you do, do not move at the last minute. You will cause a panic from other players and someone will likely die. If you're going to get into your own solo position, do so well ahead of time and make sure you're plenty away from anyone else. So we stack on each other. My off tank just went to stack on me. That's entirely viable and in fact advised for this particular strategy. After we finish that donut mechanic, everyone gets in position for chain lightning. Now, as I was explaining before, it's going to go on a healer first, and then the way the mechanic itself works is it passes to the next closest party member, no matter how far away that party member is. So if your next closest party member is at the opposite end of the map, it will travel all that distance to pass to the next closest party member. With that in mind, the closer you are, the less damage it deals. But if you get too close, there is also a point-blank AoE that goes out around the person it passes to and will kill you if you yourself step in it. So don't step on your friends, do not step on your fellow party members. Be close enough for the chain lightning to pass, but not so close that you get hit by that mini point blank. If you're not using set position for this triangle strategy, the main benefit of the triangle strategy is that you have insurance space. Further away, being too far is better than being too close, as being too close will instantly kill you, whereas being too far takes incremental more damage. So just use plenty of insurance space. Make sure you're not stepping on anyone. The way triangle method works specifically is it keeps passing among the same 3 party members until it has expired. The idea here is think of it as tag with no tag backs. If the same party member that passed to you then takes it from you immediately, they will die. You can't take it until it has passed another time after you've passed it. So a minimum of 3 party members need to be passing it back and forth with no potential maximum. So I'm going to play this out to show you exactly how triangle method works. And I'm going to use ready salted as an example here. Now ideally he would have just stayed on the C marker. Ready salted does a bit more movement than he really needs to here. I'm going to explain that in a bit more detail. So ideally what would happen is the party members that are in each group are positioned on a rectangle, right? One side is shorter than the other side. So standing on that C marker, he already would have been closer to the healer, our party member on the 2 there, then the melee damage dealer on the 1. So it would have passed to ready salted had he been on the C there, and then he would have just moved forward and it would have passed to the melee damage dealer now on the short side of that rectangle. And then as he moves back, the hypotenuse is longer than any side, so it automatically would have passed back to the healer and then back to him. Instead, he moves way far away here and it passes to the melee instead of him, and then he moves in to take it from the melee, which is viable. You just need to be careful there, again, not to get too close. You're going to see it go out, goes on a healer. You can see the orbs moving around that healer. It passes to the melee. Ready salted moves next to him to take it. He moves back to his marker to pass it back to the healer, and then he moves away. And after it passes to the melee, he moves back and takes it from him. And back to the healer. It works out just fine. It's just a lot more movement than needs to be happening. So that's how triangle method works. How circle method would work is both healers would stand on either side of the boss here, and the entire party would circle around the boss in their clock positions. Whoever has the chain lightning moves slightly closer to the party member clockwise from their position, and once it's passed they move back to their original position, and it goes around in a circle like that. There are a couple benefits to the circle positioning. The first of which, and the reason why most healers will prefer this method, is that everyone can get hit by AoE heals. The second is that if any party member does die, it is easier to adjust with circle positioning, as it just passes to the next party member in line. If someone dies using triangle position, you still do have some leeway, as your off tank can run in and take whatever position they were in order to continue passing it among that same side. The downside to circle positioning, is that you're all already so close to each other that you've exponentially increased the chance that someone is accidentally going to step on someone else, which again will instantly kill you. That said, both strategies are potentially viable. Use whatever is working best for your group. I will also mention that with triangle positioning, the only people out of range of heals are the tanks, who can ideally survive the raid-wide damage anyway, and the tanks won't be taking any damage from the chain lightning, and therefore don't need to be healed up from that either. Just use whatever is best for your group with that knowledge at hand. I'm going to rewind this a little bit to show what mechanics go out while chain lightning is happening, so we can address those as well. Alright. Oh, sorry, we're going to go back a little bit farther. Alright, so this is the chain lightning going out. After chain lightning goes out, there's a crippling blow on the main tank. Make sure you use personal mitigation for that. And then following that, there is a Judgment Bolts raid-wide, so make sure you're using AoE mitigation for that. And again, this is all while chain lightning is passing. And then as chain lightning is coming to an end, he's going to do another Executor Summons to spawn that bird ad. Again, make sure your off tank has 3 stacks of Surge Protection, and they'll take the bird. Again, do not let that bird get anywhere near you. It will kill you if it gets too close, as the tethered target. So Thunderstorm just went out. Make sure you have Surge Protection going into it. We're dodging the AoEs on the ground. This time the off tank is taking a tank buster in the middle of Thunderstorm, and we're also taking a stepped leader without Fury's Bolt in the middle of Thunderstorm. Make sure you move at the end of the cast and move back. And following that, as Thunderstorm comes to a close, we're going to take a crippling blow on the main tank, mitigate appropriately, and then a Judgment Bolts raid-wide. Again, this Judgment Bolt spawns new Surge Protection Orbs, which you're going to need to pick up for the subsequent Furies 14. Pick up your Surge Protection. And he's going to cast Tribunal Summons, so we'll know what side we need to get on after he spawns the Spears. Stratosphere Summons for the Spears themselves. And Tribunal Summons. So in this case in particular, he's spawned Ixions on the east side of the map, so our west side is safe and where we're going to line up in front of our spears. But you'll notice he also has tethers going toward the west side, which is something that I'll show you in a second. And once again, this time my off tank is going in place to take that duty action. He puts up his home gang. You can see it already active before he pops the duty action itself, and he stays in place, and that shows that he has the duty action. Do not move, do not use any actions after you hit that duty action. Just sit there and take it. And you can see me turning my camera around here. Now I'm looking specifically at where the Ixions have spawned behind us. Now these can be on either side of the map, so make sure you're checking appropriately. In this particular case, there is no Ixion on the 4th lane from the north, so that is where we're going to stack after we get knocked back. And you see the knockback itself knocked off the surge protection we had. That's why you need surge protection there. So we take the knockback. You'll want to pop sprint before taking that knockback, especially if you're on the spear furthest from the safe zone, in this case the northmost spear. The safe zone can either be 3rd from the north or 4th from the north. It will always be one of the 2 center ones so that everyone can get to it. But pop sprint beforehand, make sure you get there, dodge the Ixions, and then he's going to cast Fury's Bolt. So make sure you grab a Surge Protection for the subsequent Judgment Bolts. And as he's casting these Judgment Bolts, we're already getting in position for Storm Cloud Summons, as that's the next thing he's going to do. I know it does not feel natural to be spreading out so far as raid-wide damage is going out. It makes it less optimal for mitigation, but I can't stress enough how important it is to be in position ahead of time for Storm Cloud Summons. You do not want the wrong party members to get marked with Storm Clouds. You do not want Storm Clouds to accidentally be too close to each other. It is immensely important that you get in position ahead of time to not cause any of that confusion. So we get in position for Storm Cloud Summons, And then once it goes out, our people marked up with the praise are going to get their surge protection and get in position themselves. Again, they take one hit from the storm cloud and then they move in. And then use your knockback prevention for this 11 force. Immediately after 11 force comes a raid wide. So I personally use Divine Veil as soon as that 11 force finishes, so that our healing that we take from the raid wide damage of 11 force automatically pops it for the subsequent raid wide from Judgment Bolts. Alright, the next thing that's going to happen is Chain Lightning here, so wait for one more explosion from your Storm Clouds and then get in position for Chain Lightning. We handle this one exactly the same way we did the first time. You see it pass to a melee, and then Ready Salted takes it, and he passes it back to the range by being close to him. Again, as this Chain Lightning is going out, there's going to be yet another Tank Buster followed by yet another raid wide, so we're mitigating appropriately for those. And then the next thing that's going to happen is a stepped leader. Now this stepped leader will either be empowered by Fury's Bolt or it won't. Remember that if it does have Fury's Bolt beforehand, which again is indicated by the 3 rotating electric orbs around the boss, that it will be donut AoEs around every party member, so either stack up or spread way the heck out accordingly. But if it doesn't have that Fury's Bolt, it's going to be the Twister-like mechanic, so just make sure you make it move away from where you were standing and wherever every other party member was standing at the end of the cast. So you're going to see me move away and then back in. And he's going to cast Fury's Bolt, and then this is a series of raid-wide damage that you're just going to need to use AoE mitigation for as much as you can. He's going to cast an empowered Judgment Bolts, followed by regular Judgment Bolts, followed by another empowered Judgment Bolts, followed by 2 more regular Judgment Bolts. So that's 5 raid-wide hits in a row. Make sure you are grabbing Surge Protection every time you see him cast Fury's Bolt, which again is indicated by these 3 electric orbs rotating around the boss. So Judgment Bolt's going out. You see me cast my Passage of Arms to help mitigate that. And then a normal Judgment Bolts. Got a Astrologian Shield to mitigate through that one. Fury's Bolt, everyone grabs Surge Protection. And then another Judgment Bolt, so I'm using my Reprisal for this one. And then I put up Divine Veil to try and help mitigate the last 2 here, which are both normal Judgment Bolts. You do not need Surge Protection. Just one more. After that last Judgment Bolts there, you do not need any more healing whatsoever. The only thing he's going to cast now is his Enrage, so just all DPS on him and burn through that last bit of health. You can see we came out of that last Judgment Bolts with still 8% health on the boss. We still killed him no problem, I think even before he cast the Enrage itself, which is another Fury's 14. I'm sorry, Judgment Jolt is the name of the Enrage mechanic. And we get through it just fine. Yeah, still like 20% left on the cast bar, no problem. So that's the entirety of the fight. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'm always willing to give advice where I can. If you like what you saw here, you can catch me on Twitch. I will leave the link in the description below. I am constantly streaming current content, raiding as much as I can. My schedule is a little sporadic, but just throw up a follow and you'll see when I go live. I'm also going to leave in the description a link to my Discord, which is used for Aether pugging among other things. If you want to join the Pug Pound community, feel free to hop in there. And then the last thing I'm going to do for you is I'm going to leave a full version of the encounter with callouts for your viewing pleasure. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy. Alright, first up, raid wide. And watch for safe zone. Alright, southeast is safe. Grab surge protection, add spawning. Next is raid wide. Tank clusters, pre-position for storm cloud summon. Storm cloud summons going out. Melee, grab surge protection, get in position. Knockback. It is not empowered, dotted line. Next is crippling blow on Vatras. Chelsea's over here like he means crippling blow on Datus. There's the raid wide. And next is Thunderstorm, grab surge protection. Tomorrow we try for E6S clears with the static. Good luck, Draggle, good luck. Dead ass indeed, Grendel. Indeed. Who the fuck is Datras? I don't know, Chelsea, you tell me. Alright, add spawning. Get the... there we go. And then you return to the pug life after raid. Don't I know it, Draggle. Living that pug life all the time. Next is step leader, move at the end of the cat. Yeah, big delete. Big delete. Tank buster on off tank, raid wide. Raise 14, grab Surge Protection. East side is safe, get in front of your poles. Stack between 1 and 3. Chain lightning positions. Next is crippling blow on Pathos. Next is raid wide. And next is add spawn. Next is thunderstorm. Grab surge protection. Tank buster on off tank. I haven't really thought of that, but I don't know what benefit that would bring, Draggle. What's the idea behind that? Step leader, move at the end of the cast. Crippling blow on Pathos. Next is raid wide. Just not moving away from the boss. Oh, I didn't even, oh yeah. Furious 14, grab surge protection. I didn't even think of that, for sure. I'll try that next time. LB. West side is safe. Get in front of your pole. Sprint, get to safe zone. Safe zone is 4th from north.
Excellent.
Grab surge protection. Pre-position for storm cloud summons. Storm cloud summons going out. Grab surge protection, get in position. Knockback. Next is raid wide. Alright. Chain lightning, get in position. Crippling blow on Pathos. Next is raid wide. Watch whether it's empowered or not. It's not empowered. Move it to the end of the cast. Move. I fucked it up again, Draggle. Sorry. That's gonna take some getting used to. Grab surge protection. Stack it south. I'll be whenever it's comfortable.
Okay.
We got plenty of time. Just whenever it's a good time. Grab surge protection. Alright, this is enraged, but just keep it in him. No healing has to happen right now, just kill him. And that's game, y'all.
Oh, finally.
Congratulations, losers.